Hey Kyle, thanks for sending in your video. Looks really good. Obviously, looks like a new car. Very exciting. I don't know if you've had it out yet before this or not, or if this was your first session, but it's looking really good. Some big numbers. Obviously, really quick lap already. Hopefully, we can find you a little bit more, but it looks like the car is doing really well. Let's go ahead and dive right in and see what we can find for you for a little bit of time to work on next time out. Going into turn one, it looks like about the right brake zone, maybe a little bit more room to go just a tiny bit later. Right at the end, it seems like you're trying to hold the brakes a little bit too long. I'd like to see you kind of just roll off the pedal a little bit and start turning in just a little bit sooner. So you're not really adding much steering angle until right before the aero board. You're still fully track left here and just coming past 12 o'clock on the steering wheel there. I'd like to see, more like the half or just after the one board, the initiation of just a tiny bit of steering input, so that you're getting down to that inside curve just a little bit sooner, and that actually will put you out onto the end of this black patch just a little bit further left. You should be kind of centered on that. Let me see if I can back it up just a hair to see that a little better. So right here, this is about a car width wide, and we want to be more or less centered on that, or at least, left side tires closer to the outside of that. When you're in tighter and kind of on this lighter gray stuff, it makes you a little bit too tight through the later portion of the exit through here. And so as you get to the crest here, obviously you have to straighten it up a little bit, and then that puts the car out pretty far left really late on the exit here. And so all that means that making the setup for two, you have, to get back to the right, you have to make that turn sharper into the left. And so you end up lifting a little bit earlier than if you were already starting to get back over right at this point. It makes it a much more gradual turn in for two. And all of that really starts kind of with the turn in at one and the setup. If you're just a little bit later on this apex here, then it makes you, a little bit shallow or, too far right through this early portion of the exit. And you can't hold that tight right as you come over this crest and the car starts to get light. So that's where it starts moving left a little bit too late, and it makes this turn in sharper. So now you're off throttle, really early, long before the apex at two. We'd like to at least turn in on power and then start lifting, pretty close to apex. I know you're carrying a lot of speed in a big, heavy car, so this brake zone is going to be longer, but we want to try to be able to carry power into the left a little bit longer rather than, right there, you're already completely off. We want to maintain that just a little bit longer if we can. I don't think there's a huge amount of time there, but hopefully a couple tenths. Going through three looks actually pretty good. No big complaints there. I'll just back it up. I think, maybe there's just a little bit of room to get further right, a couple feet. It looks like there's probably 3-4 feet there at the turn in, but no big complaints. Looks like you're turning in nicely. You're picking up throttle pretty early. Maybe not full throttle until right at the exit when it's really straight. So that, again, is part of being just a little bit early and coming from not quite fully tracked right. We want to make sure we're at least running over this white little patch here. If not, maybe right side tire just outside of it, and you're kind of just inside of it. So it's effectively making you a little bit early to the apex. But no big complaint. Again, not a big chunk of time through there, I don't think. Here, though, I would say about a car length or car length and a half too early on the brakes, because you start overslowing and then you start turning in, and you actually have to open your hands several times on the way to the turn into the apex. Again, I think just a slightly later brake so that you're carrying more entry speed, and then that kind of effectively will move your turn in later. And here, just not coming off the throttle away, all the way, should help you get out to the left more. As we get out of 4B and setting up for 5A here, the video is snagging up. So currently, you come through 4B here, and you're all the way off throttle, and you're adding a pretty significant amount of steering angle, and so it keeps you pretty far to the right coming off of this corner. Which makes it hard to get out to the left to set up your turn. And it does give you a nice little straight to squirt power, but you're giving up a lot of speed right at the apex. And it's also making the turn in for 5A up here a little bit tighter. So let me get out my pen. you know, right now you're making it kind of a straight line out to the outside, then a real sharp turn into 5A. We want your track out of 4B to be a little bit more gradual and kind of one bigger arc. Even if you're not getting to full power anywhere along here, you should be able to carry more speed and more consistent partial throttle rather than completely coming, you know, zero throttle back here at 4B or, you know, under 10% or whatever it was. And then, you know, getting a nice little squirt on the straight, you're still giving up more over the sector by making 4B tight and then the turn in for 5A really tight. We want to make it all one, you know, more consistent radius if we can. And so, you know, again, by being on power here, the car is going to turn itself out further left so that, and even here, you're not getting all the way out there. So you're making, you know, the turn in for 5A a lot sharper. But if coming off 4B, we can get the car out to the left curb much sooner. It widens the radius. It also makes it, you know, a smoother turn when you get there. And all that is just not coming all the way off throttle right here on that transition. So you get that full power out of 4A, then you're completely off throttle there and like 10% throttle through the apex. We want to try to maintain maybe 20 or 30% and try to get to that squirt of throttle sooner. And it's okay if you never reach 100% throttle, you know, you got a lot of power. We want to be able to just try to maintain a higher kind of rolling speed through here, even though it's kind of a point and squirt car. We're through this whole complex, you know, the focus is get out of 5A. How soon can we get to full throttle here? But making this turn in really sharp here doesn't help do that. So we want to focus on driving the car like a Miata or whatever, just maintaining a higher min speed all the way through this big long carousel so that when you get to the point up here that you're looking through the apex of 5A, then you're getting to throttle a lot sooner because you've turned in, you know, with the car all the way track left and it's not quite as sharp. So you're getting the rotation sooner here, get to full power sooner. And in the process, you're just carrying higher min speed all the way through that little complex. Up here also for the uphill S's, this is a little bit too early to be turning in, kind of midpoint on the north course cutoff. We want to actually wait till probably just after the north course cutoff. And we don't really want to use much, if any, of this curbing on the left here because effectively it makes us too early on to the right curb. So, you know, I know 150 is big speed for sure. And so it changes things as you're kind of setting up for the uphill S's, but we still want to focus on the fundamental part of it, which is getting set up for a really late turn in and late apexes here at the bottom. And that means pretty much staying off of this curb, maybe nibbling away just a little bit at the last car length of the concrete curb. But we really don't want to be up to the painted curb because that shoots us straight off to the right. Get my pen out again. So, you know, as you come in straight here, it might make it a little bit easier to, you know, feel like you can carry speed through that first bit, but then it leaves you really early onto the right-hander up here. Whereas if you kind of really focus on this late apex here and turning the car on the uphill, that sets you up to be a later apex going over the crest. And I'll draw a little bit more when we get up to that point. But the main focus here is still try to get the car to where it's parallel to this edge of the road after the curb, you know, where that little dirt patch is. We still want to have the car aimed left, and you know, you still have left-hand input, but you have so much speed and momentum from that early apex that the car is, you know, trying to push over to the right side of the road already, and you can't really hold that left a little, you know, very long. And you can see when you get here, you know, just looking at the rubber on the road, this is kind of the dark patch where all the rubber is, and you're already getting right side tires over here onto this lighter patch, which is putting you really early towards this curve on the right. And so you're asking the car to really turn hard right there, and you're not going to have time to turn the car in this short span on the uphill before you get to that crest and you lose the grip. So you want to start turning the car down here where it's really starting to climb, get the car, you know, rotating and from a half car width further left, so that when you get to the, you know, this really steep portion, it has less to do and you can get the car straight before it's all the way to that crest. And again, I know the speed's happening a lot faster, and so it's harder to accomplish all that, but we still want to focus on that so we don't lose too much speed at the top. So here we are, we're adding lots of steering input. We can see this, you know, the steering wheel is still increasing, and you're trying to get the car to turn, you kind of let go of a little bit of wheel once you hit the curb. But here we are unweighting the car already, starting the crest, and you're still trying to turn the car, straighten it up there a little bit before it lands, which is good. But now we're already kind of aimed at the beginning part of this next curve on the left. And so now, you know, you're completely out of the throttle. This is where you really start losing speed as you get into the second portion of the uphill. And so by getting to the left curb so early, now you're really going to have to dump speed to keep it to the left. And it's good that you do, you know, you get yourself kind of back online, more or less. The video's getting crumbly again here. Let's see. So here you kind of get yourself back into position. You're not hurting yourself any further as you go up through turn 9, but you're not able to carry as much speed as you would otherwise through the middle and get back to throttle here as much as you might otherwise. You know, you get a little burst there right at the end again. And again, I like that you haven't gotten yourself out of place further left or anything, but that middle portion of the uphill S's, we really want to try to straighten it out. And that sets up with getting the late apex at the bottom. So that we can carry a little bit more speed through the middle. You know, obviously 129-ish is not bad. It's still very fast at the top, but I'm guessing this car can be kind of upper 130s through here. If possible, we want to try to get that. Looking pretty good through here. No big complaints, using all the road there at the exit. You were just a fraction early on the turn in. We saw that you had to kind of straighten the wheel. See if we can find that again. So just watching the steering input, you make one turn in and then kind of straighten up and turn back right there a couple times actually. So we want to maybe be half car length later on the turn in just to make it one nice smooth arc, but otherwise looks pretty good. And then here, no big complaints other than I'd say we're over slowing just a little bit because you're all the way off the brake, basically from the turn 11 apex all the way into Oak Tree. And maybe, you know, maybe there's another slight pressure that we're not picking up on the reading here and showing in the graphic, but that would tell me, you know, that we're a little bit too slow. Usually I would see speed still closer to 75 or 80, maybe even through the apex of 11. And then, you know, still on the brakes and then a little bit harder brake pressure right as we start to turn in for Oak Tree so that we're getting the car turn nice and early and straighten up. You still get the throttle pretty good on the exit, so no big complaints there. I think your exit there is pretty good, but we can probably be a little bit later on the initial brake, and I'd really like to see the car all the way over on the left side when we start. You're kind of just left of center right in this position, but your turn in looks pretty good. Again, maybe releasing just a little bit more brake as you start that. Your peak pressure looks like it's actually just as you're starting to, you know, add some steering input. So again, maybe just release a little bit of brake, let the car roll through this apex with a little bit more speed and a little bit harder brake as you get in here to help set the nose and turn for Oak Tree. I guess a few tenths through there with the braking. Obviously, real good speed on the back straight. I think your braking looked better up here at Oak Tree. No big complaints through there. And all the line and everything looked really good. So maybe on the brakes just before the bottom of the hill, we'd like to see, you know, if possible, waiting for that, but big heavy car with lots of speed over 170, I think I saw. So obviously the brake zone is going to be really long. You keep it nice and tidy through there. I'd like to see down here through 15 not coming so far off the throttle, and I don't remember if it actually decelerated or if it just kind of maintains. Looks like 1.8. Yeah, you maintain 80-ish through the apex, which is not bad, but we'd rather not see that dip in acceleration when you're looking at the data. And I'm sure it's not going to be flat through here. You got a lot of power, but we should see at least maybe half throttle or something. You back off just marginally. Because you're keeping it really tight left there, and you almost have to drive it out to the right to set up. And then also a little bit too early on the turn in here. I know, again, really fast entry, you're trying to straighten it up, but it hurts you in how deep you can go because you actually make it 2 brake zones. So you kind of brake here before the apex, and then because you have to turn tighter through the apex, you brake a second time down the hill. And I think that second brake is a little more than necessary because as you get to the bottom here, you're pretty far right. You shouldn't be onto this lighter gray patch on the inside between the two apexes of hog pen. We want to be fully out onto this outer gray sealer. It may not be all the way to the left curb, but it also, with a really fast car like this where you're trying to manage power down, it makes it straighter through the second apex and the one onto the straightaway, so you can stay full throttle if you get out wider in between the two. So like right in here, if you get all the way to the outside, then it makes it a straighter run through that second apex. Whereas when you're in tight here, you have to hold steering angle, in this portion a little bit longer, because you obviously have to turn the car more. Whereas if you let the car out here wider, you get the turn done earlier, and so it's easier, straighter through this portion, and hopefully you can maintain full throttle a little bit better. But also, I think just you will naturally, the car will naturally end up out there with more lateral force if you're carrying more speed through this first apex, right at the compression. And again, I would expect to see minimum speed maybe around 80 or so, another 5 miles an hour or something like that. And that'll, again, help set up the car a little bit wider left in the middle, making that second apex straighter. And hopefully you won't have to do this little lift right around the apex if you're doing that. So again, lots of good things here. The biggest time gainer, I think, will probably be that 4-5 area. Probably a little, pretty good chunk in the uphill S's, although that's hard to eke up on. Braking at 11, kind of, again, a little bit later initial brake, a little bit lighter brake pressure as you're initiating turn in and rolling through the apex of 11, and then a little more brake actually once you get to the turn in 12. That's help set the nose and turn the car in. I think braking at 13, 14, there won't be a whole lot more time there. Through 15, trying to carry just marginally more power, maybe half throttle, not fully dumping the throttle out. And then once you get down here at the bottom of the hill, a little later brake. Don't forget that late turn in. Even though you're arriving at these corners with more speed, that earlier turn in doesn't help you, because you have to dump a little bit more mid-corner speed. So trying to be, diligent with that late turn in at the end of the curve on the right down the hill. One brake zone over the apex of 16, a little bit more rolling speed through that first apex of hog pen, which will straighten out the second apex and get you more speed onto the straightaway. It's hard to quantify all that, but I would think there's probably another second and a half at least in all that. But let us know how it goes next time out. Hope to see more. Thanks.